We are going to attempt another question, that is September, December 18. And name of this question is Dugan Company. It's a section C type question. There are multiple adjustments, multiple notes are there in this question, like from note 1 to note 7. These notes are from different standards, and I guess there can be a general adjustment as well. And then 3 requirements of this question, A, B, and C. Note, all working should be done to the nearest 1000, and total marks for this question are 20. Requirement A, prepare a statement of profit and loss for D company for the year ended 30th June 2008. Prepare a statement of changes in equity for D for the year ended 30th June 2008. And third requirement is to calculate about the basic earning per share. Actually, EPS is of 2 types, the basic EPS and the diluted EPS. For calculating basic EPS, we take the impact of the shares which are existing shares and the shares which issued during the period. For the calculation of basic EPS, what we do account for? Existing shares and shares issued during accounting period. Whereas for the calculation of diluted EPS, we actually account for existing shares, shares issued during year. These 2 things are similar as for basic EPS, but another additional thing is required in the calculation of diluted earning per share, that are shares which will issue in future time period. Why the shares would be issued in future time period? Due to convertible loan notes, due to convertible preference shares, and share options or warrants. So these are the reasons for the issuance of shares in future time period. So by the way, it's a quick recall with respect to like IAS 33. There are 2 types of EPS, the basic EPS and the diluted EPS. Basic EPS is calculated on the basis of the existing share and the shares issued in the accounting period, whereas diluted EPS is calculated on the basis of 3 things: the existing shares, number 2, shares issued during the year, and number 3, for the calculation of diluted EPS, we also do take the impact of the shares which will issue in future time period. Why the shares would be issued in future time period? Due to the future commitments. What are the types of future commitments? What are convertible securities? By the way, all these are cumulatively known as convertible securities. So the shares would be issued in future time period due to a convertible securities commitment, and this would be causing the share issue in the future time period, and the impact should be taken in the diluted EPS. By the way, requirement C is about to calculate the basic earning per share. It means for this calculation, we should only be taking the existing number of shares and the shares issued during the period for the calculation of basic EPS. First requirement is of 12 marks, second requirement is of 5, and last one is of 3 marks. Now, what's included in this question of September, December 18 exam attempt? Please read this question carefully. I'm actually going to discuss the things from the question in detail. Then we will start attempting this question. We will solving this question. The following extracts from the trial balance have been taken from the accounting records of D company as at 30th June 2008. Convertible loan note. Why I'm highlighting this one thing? Convertible loan note, whenever issued as per the guidance of IFRS 9, whenever convertible loan notes are issued, initially they are break into two components, the equity and liability, because convertible loan note is a convertible loan note is a hybrid instrument which for some time has the characteristics of liability, but at redemption time it can be redeemed for cash or it can be converted into equity shares. So that is why this hybrid instrument, this compound instrument, has basically two types of characteristics. So at inception, at the date of issuance date, we have to record it. We have to record convertible loan note by breaking it into two components, which are liability and equity. Whereas liability is calculated by using the present value of liability. So convertible loan notes, note number 4, amount is 5,000. Okay. Cost of sale 21,700. Finance cost as given in note 4. The same reference for loan notes and finance cost. And finance cost for the year is 1240. Investment income is given we will be recording this income in the P&L as per the requirement A. Operating expenses, note 2 and note 5. Amount is 13520. Retained earnings. By the way, if year end date is 30th June 2008, so it's 1st July, so it means year started retained earnings are given, which are 35,400. Revenue as per note 1. Equity shares par value is $1 at 1st July 2007. Again, it's the share capital amount given at year start. And tax, note 3. By the way, if the word only tax is written or income tax is written or simply the tax written or current tax is written, and in the trial balance, by the way, it's a trial balance. So in the trial balance, if it is given on credit side, and with the name of tax or current tax or income tax, if the balance is given on credit side, so it's actually the over provision from the previous year. If the balance is given on credit side, under IAS 12, we learn this thing that current tax balance on credit side is the over provision of last year. And over provision of last year would be deducted from this year P&L. Deducted from current year provision. If the balance is given on the debit side, instead of 130 on credit side, let's say this 130 is, let's say, recorded on debit side. So what is this? So it is the under provision of previous year, and it should be added to current year provision. So we are not talking about the deferred tax. There are two types of tax, the deferred tax and the current tax. And if this thing is simply written as tax, so it means it's a current tax figure. So current tax figure on credit and debit side depends that it's over provision or under provision from last year. There are multiple notes in this question available. The relevant information is available. D company entered into a contract where performance obligation is satisfied over time. The total price on the contract is 9 million with a total expected cost of 5 million. Overall, you can see it's a profitable contract. Total contract price is 9 million and cost of sale is 5 million. So overall, you can see it's a profitable contract. Let's say if it is a loss-making contract, so you would be recording your total amount of loss in year 1. Why? Because as prudence concept, we actually record loss at earliest possible, whereas profits are not recorded unless and until they are earned. But if you are expecting a loss, record that loss immediately. So you can see here is a profit situation we would be recording the profit amount year on year according to the time period of the contract. But let's say instead of 9 million, let's say we quoted a price of 4 million and expected total cost are 5 million. Now you can see it's a loss-making contract. Don't wait for the loss to record year on year. Do record that loss immediately in the year one when you have made this contract. Progress, next line. Progress towards completion was measured at 50% at 30th June 2007. By the way, it's a year and date of the previous year. Till last year, the contract was completed at a percentage of 50. But for our fiscal year and 80% at 30th June 2008. Our relevant fiscal year is 30th June 2008. And by the way, now very important thing, how much contract completed in this year? If total amount of contract is now 80% completed, of which 50% was completed in last accounting year and date, so it means 30% pertaining to our relevant fiscal year, our relevant accounting period. So it means 30% is relevant to our accounting period. The corrected entries were made in the last year, 30th June 2007, but no entries have been made for the year ended 30th June 2008. It means we have to record this year entries, and this note is pertaining to IFRS 15 revenue from contract with customer. I repeat the things. You can see expect total price we actually offered 9 million and total expected cost are 5 million. Overall, it's a profitable contract. Overall, there is a profit of 4 million, and this 4 million profit would be allocated to the time period of the contract. Let's say we have to complete this project, this contract in 4 years. So we would be recording profit year on year. Let's say instead of 9 million, instead of this 9 million, let's say the total price of the contract is 4 million and the total expected cost is 5 million. Now it will be a loss-making contract. So if it's a loss-making contract, so whenever there is a loss-making contract, don't wait for recording the loss year on year. I repeat, we immediately record the loss. We don't wait year on year for recording the loss. That is in the situation of profit. But once you come to know that there is a loss, do record that loss immediately as per prudence concept, right? But not in this scenario. I'm just recalling the concept. So we have done with the reading of the note 1. What's included in note 2? On 1st Jan 2008, by the way, year end date is 30th June 2008. Dates are very, very, very much important. On 1st June 2008, by the way, 6 months before accounting period end date. 30th June 2008 is accounting period end date. And on 1st Jan 2008, what happened? D company was notified that an ex-employee had started court proceedings against them for an unfair dismissal. Legal advice was there was an 80% chance that D company will lose the case. By the way, it's pertaining to IAS 37 provisions, contingent asset, contingent liabilities, and IAS 37 asks you to record liability as provision when there are probable chances. And according to percentage, probable means 50% or above chances are probable chances. 10 to 50% chances are possible chances. Up to 10% chances are remote chances. So we have to record liability as a provision when there are probable chances, and probable means when you actually like estimating that there is a 50% chance, 65% chance, 75% chance, more than 50% chance. So if you are hoping that you would be losing case and there is 80% chance for losing the case, so it means you have to book a liability in this scenario. And on this date you are doing working on 1st Jan 2008. Legal advice was there that there was an 80% chance that D company would lose the case and would need to pay an estimated 1.012 on 1st Jan 2009. By the way, you are making this estimation on this date and which is to be paid on 1st Jan 2019, 1st Jan 2009. So it's actually a future value. It's actually a future value. So IS 37 asks you to do another thing, that record liability, record provision at present value. So this amount of 1.012 is payable on 1st Jan 2008, and you are working on 1st Jan, sorry, 1.012 is payable on 1st Jan 2009, and you are working on 1st Jan 2008, exactly 1 year before. So at this time, at this point in time, you would be recording the amount at present value, and the future value is given as well as discount factor is given. So what next is there? Based on the above advice, the company recorded a provision of 800,000. It's a big question mark. As we know the future value, and also we do have present value factor. So we are required to check that whether they correctly calculated present value or not. And if they have not correctly calculated the present value, then we would be adjusting this thing. I repeat, future value is given as well as discount factor is given, present value factor is given. So you can find the present value. If your present value is equal to 800 as a company calculated, that's fine. There is no issue. But let's say if there is a change in the value, if you calculate and the amount given of 800,000, so if the amount of estimation is different, then you have to adjust the entries. And this 800,000 is calculated on the same date when you are estimating and made no further adjustment. The provision was recorded in the operating expenses, and the provision made, the company recorded this provision in operating expenses. The company has a cost of capital of 10% per annum, and the discount factor at 10% for 1 year is 0.9091. Because why 1 year discount factor is required? Because the exact time period difference between these dates is exactly 12 months time, that is 1 year time. Next, the balance relating to tax in the trial balance relates to under or over provision from the prior period. The tax estimate for the year ended is 2.1 million. By the way, examiner has not mentioned that it's over or under. He actually confused us in this thing, that the balance, this balance is over or under. He's not clearing this thing that it's over or under. So we have to identify if it is given on a credit side, if any amount is given on a credit side under tax, so that's the over provision. And if any amount is given under tax on a debit side, so it's a under provision of last year. Under provision of last year would be added to current year provision, and credit balance like over provision would be deducted from the current year provision of 2.1 million. In addition, there has been a decrease in taxable temporary difference of 2 million. By the way, when taxable temporary difference are decreased, resultingly deferred tax liability is decreased, and resultingly tax expense has also to be reduced. And if there is an increase in taxable temporary difference, so then deferred tax liability would be increasing as well as tax expense would be increasing. The company pays tax at 25%, and movement in the deferred tax are taken to statement of P&L. All right. Note number 4. The company issued 5 million 6% convertible loan note on 1st July 2007, which is a year start date. If year end date is 30th June 2008, and if you actually issued loan notes on 1st July 2007, so it's a exactly year start date. Interest is payable annually in arrears. These bonds can be converted because these are convertible loan notes. So these can be converted into one share for every $2 on 30th June 2009. That the maturity date. Similar loan notes without the conversion rights incurs interest at 8%. The company recorded full amount in the liabilities. Yeah, this statement is very much important. What the D company has done, D company recorded the full amount in liabilities and has recorded annual payment. By the way, in P&L, Do we record the payment? Do we record any expense on the payment basis, or we should record any expense on accrual basis? So simply, as per prudence, as per accrual or matching concept, any expense should be recorded on accrual basis, not on the payment basis. By the way, what they have done, and they have recorded the annual payment of interest expense. They recorded interest expense to the extent of the payment made, whereas the interest expense should be recorded on accrual basis, not on the payment basis. So we don't know that how much amount is the payment, and to the extent of that amount they have recorded their interest expense, and for the remaining amount, for rest of the amount, we have to make the adjustment. Relevant discount factor, for discounting we always require the higher percentage, that is a market interest rate of 8%. We would be discounting at 8%. Number 5, D company began the construction of an item of plant on 1st July 2007. Again, it's a year start date, which was completed on 31st March 2008. In how much time they actually completed the construction? From 1st July to 31st December, there are like 6 months, and Jan, Feb, and March. The total construction time period is simply 9 months. This transaction pertain to note number 4, transaction pertain to IFRS 9, financial instruments. For 1 and 2, we have already marked. Transaction 3rd is pertaining to IAS 12, taxes, income taxes, whereas transaction 5 pertains to IAS 23, borrowing cost. So why I have chosen this question? Because there are multiple adjustments in this question, so we can recall many standards here. D company began the construction of an item of plant on 1st July, which was completed on 31st March 8. A cost of 32 million was capitalized. By the way, IAS 23 guides us the capitalization criteria for the borrowing cost. There are 3 steps. Commencement of capitalization of borrowing cost, number 1. Number 2, suspension of the capitalization of borrowing cost. And number 3rd is suspension. I repeat, commencement of borrowing cost capitalization. Number 2, suspension of capitalization of borrowing cost. And number 3rd, cessation of the capitalization of borrowing cost. IAS 23 has guided us that I would be recalling the concept while adjusting this thing. A cost of 32 million was capitalized. This include 2.56 being a full 12 months interest. By the way, if construction is effectively completed in 9 months period, so why they are actually adding 12 months interest to the cost of asset? Why? It is not like the as per the guidance of IAS 23. IAS 23 asks you to add only the interest expense for the period in which the construction is mainly completed. Why you are actually taking 12 months interest to the cost of asset? And how they calculated a 2.56 amount? They actually got 25.6 million loan, and the interest rate is 10%. So simply 25.6 million into 10% is 2.56, and they actually added 12 months interest to the cost of asset, which they have wrongly done. This include 2.56 being a full 12-month interest on a 25.6 million 10% loan taken out specifically for the construction. On completion, the property has a useful life of 20 years. By the way, if they have added this thing to the cost of asset, and afterwards if they have depreciated the asset, so it means both things are wrongly done. First of all, if the cost of asset is wrongly calculated, so it means your depreciation and any future treatment is wrongly calculated. So we have to adjust 2 things over here: the correct borrowing cost and the revised depreciation, and the remaining interest expense treatment. D company also records 0.5 million in operating expense representing depreciation on the asset for the period from 31st March to 30th June. By the way, April, May, June, they calculated depreciation on a monthly basis, and they charge 0.4 million depreciation. That's the depreciation of 3 months, and they charge this depreciation in the operating expenses. Number 6. It has been discovered that the previous financial control of D company engaged in fraudulent financial reporting. Currently, 2.5 million of trade receivable has been deemed not to exist. By the way, if the receivable are not existed, so simply record this 2.5 million as a bad debt. But keep remember, from this 2.5 million of this, 0.9 million relates to the year ended 30th June 2008. That's the current year end date, and of which 1.6 million relating to the earlier period, prior period. So if any error of the last year of the prior period found in this year, so that is actually termed as the prior period error, and prior period error adjustment should be taken to statement of changes in equity in the heading of retained earning. By the way, in which retained earning, in opening retained earning, because opening retained earning is the closing retained earning of the last year is opening for this year. So if any error found in this year which is pertaining to the last year, so to make any adjustment in the last year profit, do take the adjustment to the opening retained earning, which is effectively the closing, which was the closing for the last year. And it's a general adjustment with respect to receivables. Number 7 and the last note. On 1st November 2007, by the way, during the year, because if year end date is 30th June 2008, it means your started date is 1st July 2007, and after July, August, September, October, like effectively after 4 months, on 1st November 7, D company issued 1. million shares in full market value. They actually not issued at a discounted price. They actually issued the shares at market value of 2.2. The proceeds were credited to a suspense account. Oh wow, good enough. Their accountant doesn't know the treatment of the share issue. Simply when the share is issued for cash, so simply we are required to debit the cash, and the accountant has debited the cash, but he doesn't know about the credit treatment. So once the shares are issued at market value more than the par value, so two things are affected. One of them is share capital, and another one is share premium. So if they increase in the suspense account, so to settle this thing, we would be debiting the suspense account, which is currently on the credit side. To eliminate that, to knock off that suspense account balance, if it is on credit side, we would be recording on debit to make it clear, and then we'll record the credits increase like share capital and share premium for against the issue of shares during the year. And there are 3 requirements: P&L, changes in equity, and basic EPS. So let's start attempting this one. Working 1. And working 1 is for note 1. Note 1 is for IFRS 15. And under IFRS 15, you can see that till last year, this contract was completed at 50%, but for our year end on 30th June 2008, it's completed to the extent of 80%. So it means if contract previously was completed till 80%, and in this year it's total, so it means 30% worked performed during the year. So simply under IFRS 15, 2 extracts are required. One of them is income statement extract, and second one is balance sheet extract. But we are not going to prepare balance sheet extract because in this question there is no requirement for balance sheet. So we are only required with the income statement extract because requirement A is to prepare the profit and loss statement. So under this income statement extract, if you want to record the revenue, so overall contract revenue is 9 million, means 9,000, and relevant percentage as contract completed in 30% in this year. So from total revenue record 30% for the year, that is 2700. Another thing, cost of sale, total estimated cost to complete is 5000, and of which 30% incurred during this year. So resultingly a 1500 amount is calculated, and resultingly the P&L profit from this contract is 1200. By the way, let me recall other things from this IFRS 15. There are actually two methods to deal with like long-term contracts. The contracts, the obligations satisfied over times are simply termed as the long-term contracts, and to deal with long-term contracts, IFRS 15 guides us two ways. That is the output method and the input method. Output method is actually based on the work certified, whereas input method is based on the cost incurred to date. So there is a basic difference between these two, and in this question we are actually calculating the thing using the output method of the long-term contracts. Are you guys okay with this thing? Are you guys okay with the calculation? All right. Working 2 is for note 2. And note 2 is very important to understand for this question. Over here, the implications of 37 are very important. IS 37 asks a company to record a liability. Liability when to record liability? When there is a probable chances. What are probable chances? 50% chances to 95%. In between, if there is any percentage, so the chances of liability are probable. So if there are probable chances, record liability as provision. Record the provision. And provisions are always recorded. Provisions are always recorded at present value. We have to record the amount as provision, and provision is always recorded at present value. And what is the present value? As the examiner has given that on 1st Jan 2008, I'm just erasing the things to highlight again, to write again. And by the way, you can see on 1st Jan 2008, on this date, they have estimated this liability at 800,000. But is this amount is correct? We have to check that. Future value is given. The 1.012 is the future amount payable on 1st Jan 2009, and relevant discount factor is 0.9091. So let's try to check it. At present value, we are required to record this amount. So future value multiplied with the 1 plus R. By the way, present value is calculated as fair value into 1 plus R minus N, where R is the rate of interest. Where R is the rate of interest. Where R is the rate of interest. And N, number of years, that after how much years the payment is due. Over here, we are actually doing all these things on 1st Jan 2008. We are doing all these things on 1st Jan 2008, and estimated payment date is 1st Jan 2009. So number of time period is 1 year, and 1 plus R rate of interest is given in question, that is 10% minus 1. So if you multiply this thing, even if you don't do this thing, that directly the discount factor is given in question. So you can directly use this one, or if it is not given, you can calculate by using this formula. If you check the calculation, you will get the same value. Either you can do this one in a case where there is no discount factor is given, but if it is directly given, then don't waste your time and directly use at given in question. So 920 is calculated. 1.012 into 0.9091 is 920. And how much they have recorded already? They have recorded this at 800,000. It means they recorded wrong amount. So we have to adjust here. We have to adjust here. So next heading over here, already taken, provision already taken, Provision already taken, that's an amount of 800 as given in the note. And this further provision to be adjusted, further adjustment of 120 is required. One more thing, they just provided the initial amount of 800,000 and has not made further adjustment. By the way, once you record this liability, once you record a liability amount, so on that liability, finance cost is also to be calculated. So if it is mentioned in question, they don't made any further entry. So it means the next thing to do for ourselves is to calculate the finance cost. Finance cost over here, the total amount of liability is 920. As they have nothing done with it, so we are directly calculating finance cost at 10%, unwinding of discount into 6 upon 12. Sir, why you are taking 6 upon 12? Because you made this provision on 1st Jan 2008 and year end date is 30th June 2008. So there is a time gap of 6 months. So we are taking 6 months interest and amount of 46 is calculated. And it's a finance cost. And if it is a finance cost, so it should be recorded from P&L. It should be deducted from P&L. So we have done with that two things in this adjustment. First, to adjust the liability amount, and then to calculate the interest expense on the corrected liability amount. I repeat, first of all, the adjusted amount of liability, and in second step, to calculate the finance cost on the corrected amount of liability based on the present value thing. Are you guys okay with the things? Are you guys okay with this transaction working? Your active responses would be highly appreciated, please. Good to know that you are getting my points. What next is there? Working note number 3. For note 3, we are going to make working 3. That's the easy one. You are asking about double entry for the finance cost. Okay, let me tell you. Finance cost debit by 46 because it's an expense, and finance cost payable credit by 46. So that's the double entry for this finance cost because it's increasing your expense. And in this question, I'm not bothered about the balance sheet figures because no requirement for balance sheet preparation. That is why I'm ignoring balance sheet figures. If there is requirement for balance sheet preparation, then you would also be considering the balance sheet impact while doing workings. So what next is there? There is current year estimation, and there is over provision is available, as well as there is decrease in taxable temporary difference would be decreasing tax expense. So I'm okay. Please read it again. The balance relating to tax in the trial balance relates to under or over from the prior period. The tax estimate for the year ended 30th June is 2.1. In addition to this, there has been a decrease in taxable temporary difference. Of 2 million in the year. D company pays tax at 25%, and the movement in deferred tax are to be taken to statement of P&L. Very easy working. Normally the tax working is not simple like this, but fortunately it's given in like in this question. So we are fortunate people. IS 12, under IS 12, we are going to find the tax expense. We are not bothered about the balance sheet figures because we are only preparing P&L and statement of changes in equity. So to find the current tax, to find the tax expense, current year provision amount, under note 4 it is given, that is 2.1 million, means 2100, less over provision. Where from we are taking this over provision? We are taking this from trial balance credit side, and trial balance credit balance is the over provision, and if tax is on debit side in the trial balance, that is the under provision. Under provision would be added over here, and if it's over provision would be deducted in current year estimation. By the way, if taxable temporary differences are decreasing, it means deferred tax liability would also be decreasing. Resultingly, tax expense would also be decreasing. With how much amount? You can see there is 2 billion decrease. Taxable temporary differences are decreasing by 2000. Resultingly, deferred tax liability would be decreasing by multiplying tax rate with this amount of 2000. So resultingly, there is a decrease in deferred tax liability by 500. If liability is increasing, so the tax expense would also be, sorry, if the liability is decreasing, so resultingly the tax expense would also be decreasing. Whenever any liability is decreased, so we record liability on debit side. So deferred tax liability is debited by 500, whereas tax expense is not decreasing, and whenever there is expense, there is decrease in expense, we record that on credit side. So tax expense credited with the same amount of 500. Resultingly, how is this impacting the tax expense? Due to the reduction in the deferred tax liability, our tax expense is reducing. Our tax expense is reducing means we have to deduct an amount of 500 from the total expense. So by taking all these impacts, total tax expense for the year is calculated as 1470. 1470. Any problem, any question in this transaction? Any unclarity, you may please highlight, you may please ask. What we have discussed under financial instrument are actually dealt under IS 32, which talks about the presentation of financial instrument, IS 39, measurement of financial instrument, IFRS 7, disclosure of financial instrument, IFRS 9, measurement of it. And then I told you that IFRS 9 actually replaced IS 39, and the current measurement of the financial instrument we study under IFRS 9. Then working 4 for note 4. In note 4, there are financial instrument and convertible loan note is there. And this convertible loan note is recorded by breaking into equity and liability. Why we normally break this equity and liability? Because these are convertible. Due to this conversion nature, we simply record it into equity and liability. Why? Because for the first, for the till redemption time period, till maturity date, this loan note is to be treated as liability. But at conversion date, the loan note holder has an option to get their cash back, or they can convert these convertible loan notes into the equity share. So if this convertible loan note has two characteristics, then initially at inception, at the start, we have to record this convertible loan note by breaking into equity and liability portion. Whereas liability is calculated by using the present value factor, present value table, and present value table is being made like year, cash flow, discount factor, and the present value. And I got a value of the present value. No, I want to know the total figure actually. If year 1 interest expense of 300, yeah, perfectly fine. 4820 is the total present value of liability. I'm not concerned with these figures. I just you guys told me that the value is 4820. So present value of liability we recorded at present value of liability as 4820, and the differential between the cash received and the present value of liability is the equity section, is the equity portion. So differential would be recorded as equity, and the differential amount is calculated as 180,5,000 minus 4820. So a differential of 180 is to be recorded in the equity portion. We have not done with this thing. We actually till now we actually recorded it. We showed the initial treatment. Now what next is there? After recording at inception, after initial measurement, what to do in the subsequent measurement? For the subsequent measurement, do make an amortization table. Amortization table, or we can say amortization schedule, to unwind the liability. Because over here, as we were talking about the present value under IAS 37, we first of all we recorded the liability at present value, then we unwound the liability and calculated the finance cost. Over here we are doing the same thing. First of all we calculated the present value of liability. Now we are actually unwinding the liability by preparing amortization table. The headings of this table are like here: liability at start, then finance cost, which is to be calculated at a market rate, effective rate 8%, and the actual interest payment, you are paying interest at 6%, and finally the liability at end. By the way, even if you don't calculate the liability at end, that is okay, because we are not going to prepare balance sheet in this question. Opening liability, we are not going to continue the table for 2 years, because our relevant year end date is 30th June 2008, and these loan notes are issued at 1st July 2007, and the first year end date is 30th June 2008. So I'm not going to continue this amortization table, because this date, to the extent of this date, it will serve our purpose. Initial liability at start, we calculated an amount of 4820. This 4820 multiplied with 8% amount, that is 386, and deducting the actual amount of cash paid, that is 300. You are paying cash for each year interest. So 4820 plus 386 minus 300, so the closing liability would be 4906. By the way, next thing very important. Next thing is very important to understand. Under this transaction, the company has recorded the annual payment made on 30th June at year end of 0.3 in the finance cost. 0.3 means 300. That is a cash paid. Interest paid would be impacting statement of cash flows. But if we talk about P&L, if we talk about income statement, so total amount of expense would be reported to income statement. But instead of 386, they have reported an amount of equal to annual payment of 0.3 in the finance cost. So they actually have reported in the finance cost to the extent of the cash paid. But now what we are required to do, already taken. Interest already taken to the extent of the payment amount. So it means they have already recorded interest expense to the extent of 300, because they actually paid 300. They considered that payment as finance cost, but we calculate finance cost as per the accrual concept. It means finance cost is further to be adjusted with a differential. Finance cost further to be adjusted with the differential figure of 86, and this 86 is further reported to P&L. Is this thing clear? Now we have done with the treatment of this transaction. Is this thing clear? Note number 5 is very important. Note number 5 is very important, and it's pertaining to IAS 23 borrowing cost. D company began the construction of an atom of plant on 1st July 2007, which was completed on 31st March 2008. A cost of 32 million was capitalized. Okay. This includes, means in this total cost, this includes 2.56, 12 months interest, means this amount is included in 32 million. If this amount is incorrect, so total amount would be incorrect. If total amount is depreciated, so depreciation amount would be incorrect. All thing has now happened. We have to adjust it. D company began the construction of an item of property on 1st July 2007, which was completed on 31st March 8. A cost of 32 million was capitalized. This 32 million is included 2.5 million, 2.56 million, that is a 12 months interest. Why 12 month interest? Whereas the construction time and the completion time is for 9 months. So why they are adding 12 months time period interest? So if this 12 months time period interest is added to total cost, so it means cost is wrongly calculated, resultingly the depreciation is wrongly calculated. So we have to revise all the things. By the way, I'm going to prepare a time frame over here to make you crystal clear with these types of transactions. Normally IS 33 is not examined in this way, but in this attempt, examiner gave a very good adjustment with respect to IS 23. So working 5 for note 5. A simple time frame to understand the things. They actually started the construction on 1st July 2007 and completed construction on 31st March 2008, whereas year-end date is 30th June 2008, whereas year-end date is 30th June 2008. Construction time period is effectively 9 months and 3 months are journal months. They have capitalized total 12 months interest to the cost of asset. So it means if at this date they added total cost is 32 million and in this amount 2560 is added wrongly. So at this date, to make it correct, we are deducting the whole amount as included. So it means after deducting this, 29440 is an amount which has no problem. This amount is perfectly fine. But this thing of 2560 is to be bifurcated into 9 months and 3 months. Why 9 months and 3 months? Because the interest expense for the construction time period would be added to the cost of asset, because IS 23 says capitalize your borrowing cost, your interest expense in the construction period. When the active construction was done, do add interest expense for that time period to the cost of asset. So if you do calculate 2560 divided by 12 months interest into 9 months, so you will get a value that is equal to like 1920. And if you do same calculation for the 3 months time period, 2560 divided by 12 into 3 months, so you will get a value of total 640. So simple, this 640 would be a charge to P&L and this 1920 would be capitalized. Now if this amount had no problem and we recalculated the corrected amount of capitalization of the corrected amount of borrowing cost to be capitalized, so adding 1920 into total cost and the revised cost of the asset, and the revised cost of the asset is 31360, and this 31360 is a revised value of asset, and this value should be depreciated now, and remaining 3 months interest would be charged to P&L. By the way, if we depreciate 31360 over a 20 years life that is given in this scenario, so amount of depreciation is 1568 into 3 upon 12. Sir, why 3 upon 12? Because from 1st April 2008 to year end date, there are effectively 3 months time period. So we have to bifurcate this depreciation expense for 3 months, and 3 month depreciation expense is calculated as 392. By the way, further adjustment is to be made over here. They have already taken 4 million of depreciation, 0.4 million depreciation expense. So reversal of depreciation expense is the next thing. Reversal of depreciation expense. They have adjusted, they have deducted 400, and correct amount is this thing. So by 8, we have to reduce the depreciation expense because they have overcharged. Why they have overcharged? Because wrongly they calculated an amount of 32,000. On the basis of 32,000, they charged depreciation of 0.4 million. But the revised value of asset is 31360 and revised depreciation is 392. So we have to make a reversal in the depreciation expense as well. So which things are important? The P&L figure for 3 months interest and the revised depreciation expense. All right, and moving forward, we have done with the adjustment of note 5. Working 6 for note 6. It's a general adjustment. There is total bad debt amount of like 2.5 million of trade receivable deemed not to exist, of which 0.9 million is pertains to current year end, and 1.6 million pertains to previous year end. Okay. So if there is fraud type thing, so bad debts are to be debited with the total amount, whereas receivables are need to be credited, but we are not bothered with the balance sheet figure because that's not the requirement of this question. Further thing to understand, if we have recorded the 2500 as bad debt expense, 2500 as bad debt expense, next thing, next discussion, this bad debt is to be bifurcated. This bad debt is to be bifurcated under two things. The adjustment of this bad debt expense is important to understand. From this 2500, 900 are pertaining to year end 30th June 2008, means current year end. So if any expense is pertaining to current year, so simply record it in the P&L. And if 1600 of the bad debts are pertaining to the year end, that is previous one, 30th June 2007. So any previous year adjustment, error adjustment for our fraud adjustment should be made to statement of changes in equity, and there are multiple headings. We have to adjust this in the opening retained earnings. So that's the important idea behind this transaction. Last note for this question: on 1st November 7 during the year, company issued 1.5 million shares at 2.2 at full market value. The share, by the way, what is the par value? That's in the trial balance. Par value is 1. They are issuing share at market value of 2.2. It means 1.2 is the premium amount. The proceeds credited to a suspense account. So debit side is perfectly recorded, and the credit side is to be is actually placed in a suspense account. So by the way, in our accounting childhood, if you are from FD background or CAD background, so you studied this transaction this way. Let me show you over here. In accounting childhood, we study this thing like what is the original entry. Originally, when we issue shares for cash, we recorded cash. And by the way, if how many shares are there? 1.5 million shares issued at 2.2. 1.5 million shares into 2.2, so it means total amount of 3300 and 000 is calculated. By the way, we are working in dollar thousands, so ignore last three zeros. So cash should be debited with the figure of 3300, and original entry is share premium and share capital to be credited, and share capital is always credited at par value. So if 1.5 million shares, 1500 shares are issued at 1, so share capital is to be credited with 1500, whereas share premium is to be credited with the differential figure, the difference between the market value, the issue value, and the par value. So it means 1800 amount of share premium is calculated. So if the accountant is a wise person, then the actual entry should be done like this. But what the wrong entry has made? In wrong entry, he recorded the cash perfectly, 3300, but he credited, but instead of share capital and share premium, he credited suspense account with the same amount of 3300. What is the correcting entry? So what would be the correcting entry? Now this is the thing relevant to us. We are eliminating suspense account. To eliminate suspense account, we are recording it on debit side, then debit and credit effect eliminated. Then we are recording the remaining amount of share capital credited by 1800 and share premium credited by 1800 and share capital 1500. So that's the entry we are required to do. Begin part A, statement of P&L for the year ended 30th June 2008. By the way, now what we are going to do, how we prepare P&L, how we prepare the things. First of all, we take the things from the trial balance and then do account for the adjustment we have prepared. So if you look at the trial balance, revenue is given in question, and revenue with respect to note 1, we have done with the note 1 working. Revenue as per trial balance is 43,200, and the impact of the note 1 is to record the revenue of 2,700 from the long-term contract. Revenue for this year is 2,700. So adding 2,700 with the revenue amount. Total revenue for the year is 45,900. Now from revenue, we did a cost of sale. First of all, cost of sale from the trial balance is 21,700. 21,700 is the cost from the trial balance. Now from working 1, you can see there is another cost from the long-term contract of 1,500. So adding this 1,500 in the cost of sale, and I'm marking the reference where from we are taking these figures. So 27 we actually taken from working 1, and cost of 1,500 also from working 1. So total cost of sale is now 23,200. Please do check the values as I'm calculating. If cost of goods sold is deducted from the revenue, so the gross profit amount of 22,700 is calculated. By the way, there is investment income given in trial balance. Please do not ignore this one. Investment income is added after the gross profit calculation. So directly I'm not taking any other thing. First of all, I'm adding the investment income in the gross profit, and this investment income is directly given in the trial balance. So 120 is added to the gross profit. Now, if we look at the expenses, how many expenses are there? Like operating expenses are given, with no other expense. So it means all the things are now with respect to operating expenses, and trial balance figure is 13520. Operating expenses of 13520 are from trial balance plus. Start looking at the workings. By the way, as we calculated 120, we are going to take this to operating expenses. Why operating expenses? If you look in the note 2, the company recorded a provision of 800. The provision was recorded in the operating expenses. If the 800 of provision is charged to operating expenses, so our differential, the adjusted amount, should also be taken to operating expenses. So that is why I'm adding 120 from working number 2 in the operating expenses. There is nothing to adjust in the operating expenses from working 3. There is nothing to adjust in the operating expenses because there is like tax expense is deducted separately. Over next working, finance cost is adjusted separately. And in working 5, you can see 3 months borrowing cost, the 3 months interest expense should be taken to operating expenses. No, sorry. It's finance cost. Finance cost is directly charged to P&L. Finance cost is this 640 is actually the finance cost, but here we have a reversal. Any expense, if not actually separately given, so all of the expenses would be charged to operating expenses. This reversal of depreciation should also be adjusted from operating expenses, and we are deducting this depreciation because we have to reduce the amount of the depreciation expense. Plus 900. This 900 from working number 6, wherein we recorded current year budget expense. So if this budget is, by the way, to record expenses, there are two ways. You can record expenses by their name. So it's presentation by nature. It's the first presentation method, that is presenting expenses by nature. But when you actually add expense in the relevant department, so that the representation other method. So representation of expenses in this manner is actually the representation by department or representation by function. Representing expenses by function or department, and when the expense is shown by its name, that's representation is termed as presentation of expense by nature. But once an expense is added in the relevant head and presented in the financial statement, that presentation is known as the presentation of expenses by nature, by function or department. So we are presenting expenses in a form of by nature or by department. By adjusting all these, 14532 is the total operating expenses, and after this, profit before interest and tax is calculated. That's amount 8288. Now you can deduct the finance cost. By the way, finance cost as given in the trial balance is 1240. Then after this, I would start taking the working things. Keep remember, 46 is from working 2. I will show you the things. 86 from working number 4, and 640 is from working number 5. Keep these figures in mind: working 2 46, working 4 86, and working 5 640. Now move towards working number 2. In working number 2, here is 46 finance cost. We have taken this 46 over here. Working number 4, finance cost to be adjusted, 86 P&L. So we have added 86 in the finance cost. Working 5. This 640 P&L, the 3 months interest expense, is added in the finance cost. So the total finance cost for the year is calculated as 2012. After deducting this, profit before tax is calculated. That's 6276. Then deducting the tax expense, and now finally ended up with profit after tax. By the way, tax expense we have calculated under working number 3. So just picking the values and reporting to the relevant place. Under working 3, we calculated tax expense of 1470 and profit after tax for the year is calculated 4806. Second requirement is to calculate. So we have completed with the part A of the question. Now moving towards to attempt the part B of the question. And part B of the question is to prepare the changes in equity. And what's the simple format of changes in equity? There are multiple headings like share capital, share premium, other equity, retained earnings, and total. First of all, do write the opening balances, and all the opening balances we are taking from the trial balance. In trial balance, share capital is given as 12,200. Share premium is not given. Other equity reserves is not given. Retained earning at year start. By the way, retained earning at 1st July 7 are 35,400. So we are taking all these things from the trial balance. 12,200 is the share capital amount, and other equity is nil. Share premium is nil. Retained earning for the year are 35,400. 35,400 as given in the trial balance. The sum of this row is 47,600. Keep remember, in the changes in equity after opening balance, we adjust. What we adjust? We adjust prior period errors, omissions, or frauds adjustment. I repeat, in the changes in equity after opening balance, first of all, we do adjust prior period adjustment, and all the prior period adjustment are to be adjusted from the retained earning column. How? You can see in the adjustment number 5, hopefully that's 5. In the adjustment number 6, from total bad debts of 2,500, 1,600 are pertaining to the last year end. So we marked over here that this amount of 1,600 is to be charged to changes in equity in the opening retained earning. So that's a time to record 1,600 from the opening retained earning as adjustment of prior period error or omission or fraud. From working number 6, we are taking this thing. As this amount of expense, so it reducing our retained earning profits, also deducted from the total column. Once we adjust the prior period amounts, then the balance is calculated as restated balance. Once we done with this adjustment, the balance would be termed as restated balance. So restated balance of 33,800, and in total its value is 46,000. Now do take the things from the current year. Loan notes. Remember, once you issued the loan notes under working number 4, and the equity portion is calculated as 180. So from this, we are taking things from working number 4, equity element calculated, which is reported to other equity, and the amount is for the same thing is 180, also reported in the total column. Then what next is there? Remember, issue of shares in the last working number 7, when the adjustment were taken to suspense account and we corrected that amount, so resultingly share capital and share premium credited. So from working number, by the way, we didn't mark working over here, so I'm marking working 7 for note 7. So share capital and share premium recorded over here, and this balance should be reported to changes in equity. Share capital with an amount of 1,500, premium with an amount of 1,800, and total amount of 3,300 is written in the total column. In the change in equity, profit after tax is to be edited as calculated in the requirement A, and its retained earning for the year. Retained earning for the year is to be calculated, is to be taken to retained earning column, and the total profit after taxes for this year is 4806 as calculated in part A of the question. So 4806 is also reported over here. After doing all these adjustments, if there is any dividend paid, let's say I'm just continuing the things for the conceptual discussion. If there is any dividend paid, so dividend paid would be deducted from the retained earning and from the total column as well. In the absence of any other adjustment, the closing balances are 13,700, 1,800, 180, 38606, and total amount would be 54,286. The column, the sum of row and column would be like this. If you total this way, you will get a value of 54,286, and if you total in this way, if you total in a row way, you will get the same value of the changes in equity. Now we have done with the requirement B of this question as well.